6 minutes after the hour. Yeah, so this is the researcher facing February call. And today we have Brad Rittenhouse from Stanford Research Computing. Thank you, Brad, for being here. And the topic for today is AI assisted coding tools in research computing. So following Brad's conversation today, his presentation, we will do a Q&A session. And please use the chat with questions, or I'm sure Brad wouldn't mind if you'd raise hands and ask questions throughout the talk. So there you have it. And again, please sign into the sign-in form that has been posted in the chat. So
Yes.
thank you, Brad, for being here. Appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Full disclosure, I got confused on the time zones.
Oh,
So
shoot.
I thought this was happening at one and was just kind of starting working on this. But I've done a lot of work and exploration on these and have various documents that I can jump around to. So I think I can present the information. It all exists. It's just not kind of pulled together right now.
Well, Brad, just know that this is an easy group
Mhm.
here today. So please take your time and um, judgment-free zone. So go ahead.
But when we were discussing whether or not I should do this or whether it would be useful, I had some concerns about whether we were doing anything that other people weren't.
Yeah,
I think we were talking about, it would be good to have this as a dialogue, as kind of a bellwether of, seeing where people were at. So I think this will be good as just kind of a show and tell, to show what we're doing and to get some feedback on what other people are doing. So please do think of this as kind of a conversation and jump in as I'm going, because I really do only have about 2 slides, though it does link to some other documents and stuff.
but Brad, maybe you can give us a quick overview for maybe some folks that are not actively implementing AI-assisted coding. Maybe you could give a short overview of what this means from the CLI standpoint. And uh,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that's kind of the first part where my fledgling presentation goes. So I wanted to give kind of an overview of what I see as playing into that infrastructure here at Stanford, specifically on our Sherlock research cluster, which is the one that I interact with the most and is probably the one that integrates AI tools the most at this point. Um, there are, I think, several different lanes that these things fall into, and ones that are at differing levels of maturity, ones that kind of come from the AI ML world, and pre-exist, come from the and pre-exist MI, but have kind of been brought into that. Those are kind of like the larger platforms. Well, specifically Hugging Face. So we have a Hugging Face implementation that's been on there for a long time, but this has, as a machine learning platform, it also brings in LLMs, and this is allows users a lot of freedom to bring in a lot of different models. It is really good, especially for specialists in research, because they're kind of a community-based, repo-based um, platform, and they really encourage when you're training a model for you to re-upload that model to their site. So you can get a lot of really specialist retrained models from there. So, if you have medical people working with like medical language or people working with law language, they can often find like really specific retrained models there. Um, we also have Llama, which is one that I haven't used that much. It is more machine learning, but it's similar to Hugging Face. Both of these can be used very extensively for free. I don't think there's even a paid option for Llama, though there may be. Hugging Face for larger models to be used locally and for like faster download speeds and stuff. There's a paid subscription. It's $9 a month. Um, for the personal, their enterprise options. I have actually a very extensive pricing guide that I just made a copy for you all. So if you're looking to like get into options, I think it's a compelling thing to give to higher ups to kind of puzzle through what might make sense financially for your group. I'll have a link to that in a second. Um, anyways, I think our more interesting implementation right now is with Llama. Both of these exist as LMOD Lua modules. Um, but Llama, we have a central cache of commonly used models that people can pull from for convenience. So they don't need to like download models. That also, saves our infrastructure from everyone pulling, GPT-4 or whatever um, a million times. It's just sitting there on our systems and has to go around locally, as opposed to getting downloaded every time. And then there was also their newer update has a function called Ollama Launch, which I haven't messed around with, but its function is to allow integration of these models with CLI coders. So I'll go into the CLI coders now. But basically, these are command line AI implementations uh, that you can use, but they often, we have kind of a weird conundrum right now, though we are working through it. It's actually sparked a lot of um, impetus to figure out ways of working with AI. Because these CLI coders that we've been putting on our systems, we can't really support them because we don't have enterprise subscriptions to them. So we launch them and then they say like, give us your API key so you can use this. So if users come in with issues, we can't look at what they're looking at for most of these. Um, so I brought up the fact that this was an issue, and we've been moving towards getting some seats for these so that we can support them properly. Um, but yeah, so the ones that we have in place are Copilot. Um, there are different models available for different ones. All of these are again modularized through LMOD. Um, they, with the exception of Crush CLI and OpenCode, I think has been since closed in disgrace. So we don't need that one. We've taken that off and they've kind of shuttered themselves. Um, but yeah, you're probably familiar with all of these options. Um, this is kind of internal documentation for us. It's not stuff that I need to kind of go through a ton of. Um, but yeah, different like API keys and things like that. And users often have a lot of issues connecting all of these things up. They're tricky, um, but they do often already have their subscriptions. In evaluating what things to get memberships to, we did a small study of like the invocations of these different modules and found some pretty interesting statistics so Claude Code was far and away probably 80% of the usage of invocations of these modules. And then I believe Gemini and Codex, both were probably at like 10%. So that's basically 100%. And then the other ones were, a smattering um, of the rest of the usage. So I'm not sure if that's kind of the general population usage statistics, but it seems to be pretty sticky for us. Um, Crush, I'd like to just give a special shout out to. They don't have like the latest models or anything like that, But it's all free. A lot of these, some of these you're just kind of like talk to in the command line, but some of them are more like directory based and mimic a more IDE codex type or cursor type VS Code type thing where you give it access to like a directory and it can look at all of your files in that directory and just like build a project for you. Crush is like that. I believe Cursor is like that as well. I find those in my personal work to be more productive. Um, but and I guess one of the things that I've been pushing as well. It seems less important going up the chain, but you know, you get these subscriptions to support your users to be able to interact with the software that you're offering them. But they do also will come with the ability to use models with the IDEs that these companies offer, which if you're doing any sort of like development or RSC work or anything like that, I think is pretty valuable for you in your own work. I do a lot of like kind of development stuff. So I'm looking forward to having those as um, business kind of subscriptions. Um, yeah, so I think IDEs are a little um, harder in an HPC environment. We don't really have, graphical capabilities. Probably the main one that people offer is Code Server as an add-on to Open On Demand. Um, that has some issues because the coders are offered in VS Code through extensions, but because Code Server is like a hack of VS Code, um, the extensions aren't offered the same. But I was at least we had a ticket for someone who wanted to use Copilot in Code Server. I was able to find a GitHub script that allowed, I don't know, whatever the API to talk to whatever. Um, so I'd imagine there are ways of supporting that type of thing for different models and different services, though it's not something that I've fully explored yet. This, I think, is something that will be useful. And I can share these slides here. I'll put this into chat right now.
Yeah, and Brad, you're getting lots of questions. They're popping in the chat. So we'll get
Good,
them.
because this is about the end of anything that I've prepared.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
If you want to jump in and take a look at what's being said
yeah,
there.
I'll just go over this and then we
Sure.
can discuss. So this is something that I put together. Like I said, our inability to interact with the AI CLI coders that our users are using on our systems has sparked conversations about actually us subscribing to these services. So the higher ups here wanted information on how much they cost, what they offered, et cetera. So I put together these two sheets. This one covers the services and what they offer and the prices. And then also this kind of calculator that puts all of that into context. So this is more kind of a comparison thing. And then if you want to do like a worksheet of adding them all up to what they would cost a month if you got n number of each different thing. Um, so feel free to use that. This one is, yeah, it looks like lots of people were in here, so it looks like the sharing went well. Um, but yeah, that's kind of the whirlwind tour of what we have currently and how we support it. Uh, but yeah, I'm happy to talk. It did look like there were a lot of questions. Or if anyone wants to just jump in, always takes me a while to find out how to get back to
Yeah, I've been
Zoom.
trying to copy and paste the questions from the chat onto the document, but it's getting a little overwhelming. So maybe I'll start asking questions that I pasted so far, and you guys then, if you wanna, so we can organize things a little bit. If you can put things in the document, if your question hasn't been answered yet, and then I'll try to quickly type in the answer. So the first question is, how do you, well, actually, that was my question. How do you implement the modules for the CLI assistant? So do you have like a separate module, let's say for Claude, separate module for Copilot, or do you have like a Llama? Let's say actually Llama will be anyway. So let's ask that. Yeah.
They're all separate modules. That's something that happens on the sysadmin side, though. So I don't really know the details of that. But if you do need details, you can get in contact with me, and I can see what we can find out further.
All right. So anyone here using? Oh, actually, this is probably a related question. So the main question here is there are many choices for coding assistants. Which one's the best? And I think you guys already answered, or your colleague answered. But maybe just do a quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just all it's personal preference. I think the big thing is the models, and the models all leapfrog each other. But the impression that I got from our study of what people are using is it seems like the loyalty is like cigarette brands. And maybe that's a little dated of a reference, but you kind of pick one and you stay with it. You're a Marlboro man or you're a Claude Code woman. So yeah. I think a lot of people, regardless of like what the models are currently or how good they are, they're sticking with the one that they liked.
Then we have a bunch of questions related to the security of these tools, mainly for what kind of data is being sent to the outside. Do they work in more heavily firewall environments? Do you guys have any restrictions on that, or is this in my mind, at least on our side, we are not concerned about it in our what we call general environment, so open research environment, but we are concerned about it in the more controlled environments.
Yeah, so I know like Hugging Face, for instance, you can set the entire instance to be offline. And anytime you're just using local models, there won't be any data exfil. So you can lock that down as an admin if you'd like. But these ones, the things that I've been showing here are on our low to medium risk servers, so we're not really concerned about that. And I think, are putting the impetus on researchers for, taking care of their data if they are concerned about that. But all they have to do then is download a model and use it locally to prevent data exfil.
Yes, all right. So then going back to the module, so who and how decides which models you include in your Llama or Hugging Face?
Yeah, so the Llama is the one with the common cache. That's kind of our main sysadmin for our primary cluster. It's I'm not sure exactly how that was seeded. It's probably just, the big names, the ChatGPTs and the Geminis and what have you. Um, but also I think probably backed by usage statistics after that. But I think it's a good idea, and I like that and would like to see that used a little bit more, just to cut down on all the downloading and all the kind of waste that can be used when people are hitting models separately instead of just having it there.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely concerned about that too, but we're more or less just reacting on users. So if user wants a new model, we download it for them. So
Yeah.
looking at some more automation to that definitely is a good idea. Let's see. So Hugging Face, same thing. Do you also do some kind of a caching on Hugging Face or like download on demand or probably?
We don't have the same system set up for Hugging Face, but users have a lot of freedom in downloading their own models for Hugging Face,
Mhm.
which is nice.
Another question, who's paying for the various subscriptions? Do you have
Uh,
some system at the university or is it per person or people
yeah,
do it?
users BYOB right now. I'm arguing, and UIT and our department are going to pay for some common seats for us to be able to access some of these services so that we can support them. Um, but it's going to be they're not that much even for enterprise seats. They're like 20 or so dollars. Obviously, that can add up if you're getting a few seats, and there's, it's kind of like the uh, subscription cable streaming services thing where, once you start getting all the things that you need, it's pretty expensive every month. But uh, yeah, it's going to be like a few $100s probably to support these. But you might try like kicking it up to your um, umbrella IT corporation to see if they have any licenses or anything like that to price share that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll just kind of with experience from our university, just got a ChatGPT license with Codex included.
Yeah.
So we have they cannot tell people use it only when you have to because they have to pay per instance,
Okay.
but it is available.
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to hear anyone opinion about what the draw to CLI tools rather than a full IDE experience. So I guess you seem to be kind of preferential to IDE tools. Oh, sorry, IDE to CLI tools. Why so? Or
I think it's just what is compatible with our HPC system.
Mhm.
Uh, most like the only thing that is really supported that can handle kind of an IDE type environment is code server, which again is like a VS Code clone. Um, but that's really the only thing that's like integrated with our system that you can put our system's hardware behind that can then do a graphical interface. So other than that, the way to use AI assistance is through the CLI coders. But if you have some sort of more graphical HPC system, then yeah, you can feel free to go with your anti-gravities and your cursors and things like that.
All right, Brad, do you know if Gemini CLI respects the no train license agreement of the institution's Gemini enterprise license? So you
I
guys,
think you pay for it. I think if you get to business or enterprise subscription, then and it's all spelled out. It might even be in the sheet that I shared. Um, but one of those, usually in the subscription tiers, it will say at this tier you get we don't snoop on you. So yeah.
okay, last question that I managed to paste. When you're talking about CLI coders and HPC, how do you manage data security concerns? So I guess it's a repeat question to what we already have.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I think just
yeah,
mostly
so
local LLMs is the
yeah,
main
okay,
thing.
I will. So I ran out of questions in the call doc. We'll go back to the chat in a second, but Sean has a hand raised. So Sean, why don't you ask a question?
Yeah, Brad, thank you so much. This is amazing information. I just wanted to follow up on the Gemini CLI question.
Hmm.
We just haven't had much clarity from so we do have, the enterprise, Google Gemini license that comes in, with the Gemini, web interface. But we
Hmm.
just haven't gotten clarity from Google whether that also applies for the Gemini CLI interface. And that's
Hmm.
kind of concerning for us and for our users, that they may want to do this, on the cluster with their research data, but not have that data be trained on, by Google. So do you have any, specifically if that or where we could look that up or, what your experience tells you about that?
Uh, yeah, I mean, one, I would say never trust what the tech companies are telling you. But two, I would look at the document, the pricing tier documents that I have linked there and see if you can parse that at all. But like I said, we're still paywalled out of the Gemini CLI tool. Um, but if there's a way to use a local model with it, then you can maybe just advise users to use it that way. And then that should mean that, they're not, because then it won't be running on their servers and they won't be getting access to your inputs. Um, that would be the way that I would do that and just like make sure that there's visible documentation of like this is the secure way to use this. That would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Brad.
Mhm.
All right, we have a couple of good questions. I managed to run over the chat. What use cases or projects do you have all used for AI coding assistance? So I guess this is a question for everyone, but Brett, what do you have kind of an idea of kind of the breadth of your users that are using these tools?
Yeah, not off the top of my head, really. These really have only been installed for a few months. So we've really only gotten a few questions about like how do I hook up my subscription, those kinds of things. Haven't really gotten to talk to users about what they're using them for, but there have been like close to over the past 3 months, there have been close to I think 20,000 or no, maybe 100,000 um invocations of just Claude code. So they're pretty popular.
Yeah, what did you find it worked well and what did not? If you can, again, you haven't used things too much, I guess, so it's hard to get the
Yeah,
data, but
yeah. I
maybe
mean,
some.
it seems like people are not having much trouble once they get them working. As usual, it's the hooking up all the payment systems seems to be the hard part. So that might be something to focus on in your support is teaching people how to do that. Mm.
Anyone else here have any cool use cases of using these new AI assisted coding tools for your projects? I heard some people, using Cursor, Claude Code as our research engineers. So curious of some of you. Oh, Austin?
Hello. I haven't seen anyone mention this in the comments, but the most success that I've had with these tools has been more attached to what I'm using in addition to them. Um, for example, the MCPs and um, tools for specking out guardrails to your code, the prompts that you use to get them to create a quality of code that fits within your organization. You guys have anything to say about that? Love to hear it.
Uh, so I'm not familiar with MCPs.
They're like these
Um,
specialized servers that, like for example, there's a Python MCP that's like tells you all the details about Python
Hmm.
or something like that.
Yeah,
They're
I mean,
basically
I
like
don't think
optimizations that you plug in.
yeah, I don't think I have any for that, but if there's anyone else who has any feedback,
Yeah, this kind
sorry.
of seems to be what I'm reading about MCPs is they are used heavily with agents, with agentic AI, and so that's kind of the next level, I guess, after the discussion that we have now. So, all right, few other questions
tools
that
like
popped up. Yeah,
uh,
yeah, go ahead.
the other tools for like specking out code that allow the agent to reference, like Claude Code, for example, to reference that document as a way for it to get up to speed on what's happening in your code base. Uh,
So I've been looking at that. There's hundreds of different implementations of this,
yes.
um, and they're all moving at a speed that is difficult to know which one is the right one today, or this hour, or this minute. So it's a little bit of a wild west right now.
I would say from my experience, um, what works best is just going back to first principles. If you have good documentation of your design in your product inside of that repo, the agents will be able to use that and extrapolate from existing code's design to follow how you've been coding and how you've been writing your variables. Maybe I'm missing out on these new paradigms, but for me, writing those markdowns for design and also what the entire repo is about has worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with that is that our code has grown over the last 20 odd years, and different people have different coding styles and things like that, and you spend a lot of time like telling it not to change coding styles because one file is different than the other. But the big issue really is that, you know, it will apply some like FLAC 8 or rough or black or some kind of coding standard to your code and try to do that consistently. But yeah, it is very fast moving to the point that, you know, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, maybe we can devote another call to agentic AI. Well, there is also the AI working group. That's actually another focus group of CaRC that has the meetings on Wednesdays, the day before today. So keep an eye on that as well. They have good talks there. All right, so we have a couple more questions that popped up. Does your configuration of the CLI agent modules include any system-wide restrictions? For example, Cloud Code allows a settings file in the system directory that overrides any user settings.
Not to my knowledge. I think we're pretty free. I use Hugging Face pretty extensively and use a lot of like environment variables and stuff to set that up just how I want it, and have never run into any issues where I wasn't allowed to do anything. So yeah, we're pretty open as far as how we let users use basically anything that doesn't require sudo. And even then you can get around that with like containers and stuff. So yeah, I think we're pretty open for
Yeah, it
those
makes
stuff.
sense in the open research environments. You kind of give the users the freedom. All right, next question, which is actually kind of interesting. I'm not sure if you can answer, but maybe somebody else who's using the agents and pays money for it can. So they tend to consume substantial amount of tokens. If anybody has any advice on how to conserve the tokens to complete tasks. I would be kind of guessing it's pretty much up to the agent to decide how many tokens they end up using. So I'm not sure how much you can control that, but
I have something to offer along those lines that if you look at just Google like, MCPs for Claude Code, and there are some that focus around bringing the documentation related to what you're working on closer to the agent. And it cuts down on that traffic between the AI API calls. So it cuts down on your tokens by like having access to all the Python documentation that you need or whatever software that you're working with. So that could be one way to reduce the token count.
all right, Tim, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I've found I like to think of the LLM. I use Claude Code as a flashlight, and its attention is the flashlight, and you see everything, and it only sees a little bit, and that flashlight is where you get the token consumption. So if you tell it to do something general, it will look all over the place, and it'll fill up its context, and then it'll have the compact. So my strategy is to work on areas at once and do the same thing over and over in that area, not over and over, but fix things in that area so that things are already in the context. Because when you move the flashlight to somewhere else, you're going to have to reload the things as well. A good strategy mentioned earlier is like a design document. The LLM can help create those, or you can write them on your own. That design element can really help kickstart the LLM and understanding what's in that repo, design decisions, where to find things. That way, it's not constantly grepping for things in your entire document.
Feedback. And again, I am lost in the questions here, so let's open the mic if anybody has any question, or if your question that you posted in the chat has not been answered, can you unmute and ask, or any feedback that you might have? Hmm. Right. So why don't we open up the floor here and just people say what they're doing, and I will volunteer to be first. So one thing that we've noticed with the VS Code server in Open On Demand, right, is that it actually it is more tight in that sense that you cannot have more user in that code server than yourself. And so that prevented people from authenticating to Copilot. So Brad, you mentioned there might be some workaround that I haven't found, but the workaround that we found was that we just kind of naively installed the VS Code desktop instead of the server, which allows multiple users. And so then people can log in with their GitHub credentials into the desktop that runs as just the VNC app in on demand, and then they're able to use that. So that works for us. It's not the server, so we have, now essentially we have two VS Code apps in our on demand. But some people do that. But honestly, in my experience, most people prefer to run the VS Code out of the desktop and do the SSH tunnel to our compute nodes. And so we do, and that's when you can do the Copilot 2 or any other subscription that you may have. So that's, I would say, is the preferred route of our users.
Yeah, yeah. VS Code's like a big no-no from our sysadmin side, so we can't do that solution. And I cannot promote or speak to the safety of this repo that I found, though it did work for me to connect to Copilot, and I've linked that in the chat through code server. But yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely the server access is a bit of an issue on our end too, but we do allow SSH tunneling to the compute nodes from just plain terminals. So my argument, which our security people agreed with in the general environment, in the open research environment, was that it's the same thing, and so we allow it. All right, come on, guys. I'm sure everybody else is doing this, so.
Hello, I am Arshad Mahmood from Stony Brook University. So we have developed Open On Demand with the Open Web UI as front end, and which allow Llama or VLLM as a backend. So that is very helpful. This allows user to download their own model from Hugging Face and link to the Open Web UI as front end.
That's actually a good information for me because I tried Open Web UI about a year ago with on demand and it didn't work because it had some sort of a redirecting of the main page.
Yeah,
so I'd be really curious to hear what you guys did to get around it.
Yeah, so it is. I mean, we tried our best to follow what people are doing online. It was like not very successful. So we spent a very good amount of time. I can share our GitHub repo link, so you can try. The instructions are very clear. Let me know or Dave Carlson here. You can send us an email, and we shall be happy to help.
Yeah, please post the GitHub page in the chat because I think at least for us it will be quite useful. And I do second that idea. That we spent quite a bit of time trying to find some kind of LLM front end just for people to try to run LLMs, not necessarily coding assistants, right? And that was not very easy because most of these are kind of desktop based, these applications or these front ends to LLMs. And there was one which name I forgot now because I found one that works, but it's not great. Yeah, so I'm not going to advertise that. So we have that available now.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm just
anybody else?
Yeah, I'm just going to put the repo on the chat box if someone is interested.
Yes, Tim is saying Libre Chat is also popular as long as it works on demand, I guess. That it was kind of my goal here was to make it available through Open On Demand because otherwise, it's more complicated to start up like a web server or like LM Studio or something like that on desktop, right? People need to log into that in graphical interface and kind of go through all that. So on demand is just more straightforward. Anyway, Sean, go ahead. You have a hand raised.
Yeah, so last semester we demoed this in a software engineering class, and we developed this thing that we call the multi-tenant apps, which is for open on demand. And what that allows us to do is to separate the back end service and the front end clients. And it allows you to share the job info between users within Open On Demand. And so in that class, what we did is we had an Llama backend with like one of the GPT models, and we share that job out to 10 students in the class. And so those 10 students can then connect to it with Jupyter or with VS Code or, Gradio or some other interface. But the good news is that we can leverage only 2 GPUs that we had on the cluster to service, 10 students to this entire class, right? And so that was the best approach that we could find where we would have the best reusability of resources, not have one server per job, connected to a front end, but rather have only one service and then several front ends connected to the same one. And that was a good success for that class. And we're still exploring how to leverage that, in other scenarios.
Yeah, thanks. We actually had a call about it in one of the on-demand tips and tricks earlier, a few months ago. So feel free to look at the discourse of Open On Demand for details on that. We have recordings from that and everything. Any other question? I actually do have a question then, and this is for everyone. And that is, so what are we going to do about more secure environments for these coding assistants? Because we actually do have requests for, we run a HIPAA compliant environment, and we are working on the NIST 800, 171 and all these kind of derivatives, CMMC. So we have people that want to use the coding assistants in these environments. And our answer to them is, you don't want to use, or we don't allow you to use any external one. So the alternative to that is to spin up everything in-house, right? So I would like to ask if anybody has done that already, and if you did, what experiences you had. And it's fine if we don't give any answers because we are currently working on it, right? But we don't have it ready yet, so we cannot really give any feedback on that.
I mean, we do have coders in our secure environments. I don't work on those as much, but if you want some details, I can connect you with those people. I would say like the most secure thing is there are modes that you can turn on for installs that turn off all network communication. So I would think that that's probably the first thing I would look at for something being completely secure. But I don't know. I don't understand all of the complexities around that. So other people may have more to say about that.
Right. In my experience, that's definitely something that needs to be looked at. And the other is what backends and front ends are you using for this, right? So if you have to use open models, of course, that you locally install, what backend you use, or Llama or VLLM, we are actually looking, the student that works with me on this, I forgot now, I think he's using Qwen 3 now as sort of the base that's supposedly is working the best so far. But again, we're just exploring the models at this point. And so, again, if anybody has any feedback, feel free to let us know, and or we will probably discuss this sometime in the future. Because I think eventually we're gonna have to spin something like that up locally, both for the security reasons and for the cost reasons.
Is anyone tracking any metrics on AI usage? Just like, not just tokens, but like who's using what, adoption metrics, or is that not the scope?
I can show you ours. One sec. This is just the last 3 months. Why is this? There we go. And, let me unshare first.
So you actually collect statistics on, say, the tokens or something, or?
No, this is usage of our um, services over the past 3 months. Um,
Brad, it's in the team channel.
I just got it. There we go. So yeah, it's not like super in depth or anything. But these are invocations of our modules. So just pure invocations. So like 20,000 for Cloud Code, and then like I said, 1,500 to 2,000 for Codex and Gemini, and then a smattering of Copilot and Cursor, and then by unique user. So it's a lot of just power users, it seems. And then, I mean, actually kind of equal numbers for the last four. It's just the Codex and Gemini people are making a lot more queries. But and the Claude Code people are just at an exponential rate. But yeah, that's our usage pattern.
Yeah, I guess that answers the question, what's the most popular coding
Yeah,
assistant?
yeah.
And you're using the LMOD scraping, right, to like put it into the logs and then you scrape the polyloads, right?
I think so. I asked our sysadmin for the info, and
Yeah.
it seemed pretty easy to get.
Hey, Martin, we are down to the remaining minutes. So if there is any other, probably have time for one more before I do announcements. One more question out there.
In terms of support for these modules, where are the most tickets coming from?
As far as like departments and such, I don't necessarily know. I mean, it's probably just reflective of our customer base. Sorry, go ahead. Did you have some sort of clarification there or no?
What I was referring to actually is in terms of like how much work, in terms of the type of support that you're providing, where are you finding where the researchers are struggling?
Yeah, it's mostly just the like API connection stuff so far. It seems like they can figure out how to launch it. They can figure out how to use it once they've got it launched. But they're just having issues with hooking up their API keys. But we haven't seen that many um, tickets around them. Uh, and I mean, even though there's 20,000 invocations, it's in number of users, it's in the hundreds. So that probably doesn't transfer into that many, potential tickets. Um, but yeah, it's mostly been around API stuff.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for the great attendance today, for everybody these awesome questions. We will be getting this recording posted. We will consolidate all those questions and get them into that call doc and get that information published. And Brad, if you end up having a PowerPoint that you think would be helpful with some notes on it, that would be great. We could get that shared out as well at that same time. So really appreciate you being here and driving this conversation. And Martin, thank you for facilitating, and the rest of the steering committee. Just want to do a quick shout out again to just say, hey, we're looking for people to help with these monthly calls. We have a great group of 4 people. We could use some more folks helping out. So check that out. As far as announcements go, please visit our events page for CARC. Also, just wanted to do a shout out to the systems facing track. They have a call that's happening next week on quantum centric HPCs. And that is on February 19th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Brad, if you want to check that out, make sure you check out the time zone there. It's a joke. And that is so hard for all of us as we're navigating across the country, getting these times. And I think this is lunchtime for some people, so we appreciate you making this call. Next month, we are going to do a joint call with the Workforce Development Interest Group, and that will take place on March 17th. So this slot, we will jump a little bit later in the week and do the 17th of March at 2 p.m., where we will discuss how research computing professionals can meaningfully contribute to open source HPC projects. And we have Rose Stein will be on that call. So appreciate everybody being here today. And thank you so much. I'll go ahead and close this call out. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
I will just add